thing I will say is we have had significant challenges with recruitment and retention. Namely, it is in our entry-level positions. We, as a city and with many localities, are facing a challenge in that most of our workforce is seasoned staff, meaning in the next 1 to 3 years, we have a fair amount of our staff that's going to be eligible for retirement. Can't blame anyone for exercising their right and long-earned ability to then retire. But on the back end, we here as a city compete for a small pool of the workforce that is available regionally, and we struggle to get good candidates. We're consistently getting applicants, but we'll get good folks, and as soon as we get them in, they're getting an offer from somewhere else for just a little bit more money, and it makes it really hard to retain folks. That coupled with the rising inflation that we're seeing in this country, as I'm sure you all saw the news, Friday the Consumer Price Index came out and inflation's rising at its fastest rate that it has in 40 years. Things don't go as far as they used to. Additionally, we also have a federal minimum wage mandate that is continuing to be implemented incrementally. That minimum wage will be $15 an hour in the next, I believe, by 2025. So that being said, I'd like to get into some statistics for you all and have a discussion for consideration. Right now, we have 95 full-time employees. Out of that, we have 37 FTEs that are below $15 an hour. So by 2025, those employees will actually be listed as minimum wage. Basically 39% of our full-time employees are below future minimum wage. So let that sink in. 11 of our part-time employees and 8 of the 11 part-time employees are below $13.50 an hour. That impacts positions such as emergency communications, which is critical. Looking at your cost of living wage calculator, this is developed by MIT. It's sort of the golden standard that folks look at for what you need to get by. So when you look at this, and apparently there's a laser on here, and I've been here 2.5 years, and I did not know that. I just learned that tonight watching Lee present. But now I'm not going to be able to do it. Okay, so if you look at this, if you are one working adult and you have one child, to be making living wage, not rich, you need to be at $27 an hour. Poverty wage is $8.29 an hour. So if you're just making 15 and you're in the middle, you're just scraping by. So if you move on over to 2 adults working, or 2 adults, 1 working, and you have 1 child, you're at poverty wage. We have a lot of folks, because of lack of childcare, there's still a parent that stays home and 1 parent works. So if you're making $10, $11, $12 an hour, it's poverty wages. Out of our regular workforce, again, we have, 6 below 13 an hour, 20 make below 14 an hour, and 11 make below 15 an hour. So we have over 20 employees that make below $14 an hour. So if they have 2 children and a spouse that stays at home, they're scraping by. Even if it's just them living on their own, working to buy their first home or have an apartment, rent a house, let alone have a car payment, they are scraping by. Especially with the rate of inflation these days. So getting back to the concept that I wanted to discuss with you guys about recruitment and retention. Again, it's very difficult for all positions and applicants. We've been very fortunate lately with some very good applicants. Part of that is we have done a really good job of us as a city council, city administration, building a positive narrative for the city and accomplishing a lot in recent years, that this is a desirable place to work. However, we lag in wages. It is knowledge that we can't compete with private employers, but we can be part of an effort to ensure that if you come to work every day and you're putting in 40 hours, 50 hours a week, you shouldn't be earning a wage that is a poverty wage on paper. So wanting to present to council, as you all know, we've been very fortunate with good financial policies, good budgeting practices, good efforts of not touching our reserves. As you all have seen in the past 2 years, we've grown our fund balance by a little over $4 million. I do think that we are at a point where we need to start, one, addressing the proactively the increasing minimum wage requirement on the front end, not waiting till 2025, and two, helping with the positions that we're working to recruit and rewarding the folks that are here that are on those lower ends of the scale. You know, when you're thinking that you've got 20 employees below 15 an hour, that's going to be the new minimum wage. Some of those employees have been here 10 years, 5 years. That's not, that's not how we want to have ourselves with our employees, especially that we want to be a premier employer in the region, and especially with the stability that we offer as an employer and our benefits. As a result, I would like council to explore and discuss a 4% cost of living adjustment. Inflation is well beyond 4.9% right now, but that 4%, for instance, for a $13 an hour would take it to $13.52 an hour. If you're $14 an hour, 4% would be $14.56. Typically, and the reason we recommended 4%, it's just below what is traditionally considered a raise threshold. When you do a full-on raise, usually raises are either 5 or 10%. When you do a performance-based raise based on performance evaluations. And two, it's what we can fiscally absorb without impacting unnecessarily our budget and our fund balance unnecessarily. It gives us the opportunity to comfortably absorb it with this year's budget and then enter into next year's budget discussions with some additional discussions on how we're going to address this. And I think part of it is we also need to look at how we have our pay ranges set up and having a much more broad HR related discussion. But when we're looking at it right now, we're getting behind the curve. I know we traditionally have always done longevity, but longevity actually costs more. And it also does not, that's based on available funds. It does not affect, your daily average hourly wage of what someone looks at when they get hired. You might get your longevity bonus or you might not, but I know for sure I'm making X dollars an hour. And when I work overtime, I get time and a half. And so again, this is just a recap on where we are with our consumer price index. And again, it's increased 6.8%. In fiscal year 21, we did do a 2.5% cost of living adjustment. That was the first, sort of cost of living adjustment staff had seen in a while. With a potential 4% increase, that would at least be doing a marked step towards keeping pace with inflation, plus also helping with the recruitment and retention, where we're seeing a lot of vacancies at the entry level of staff. I have talked with other area administrators here as well as in the New River Valley. This is a challenge they're also facing. There's localities that are even offering sign-on bonuses. With that, I'm happy to have any questions, discussion.
I'd like to say something.
Yes, sir.
What we need to look at too is the employees of the city of Covington, they're the heart of the city. Without those employees, we can't do anything. Longevity checks are nice, but in the past, they don't affect until you have a tenure of 5 years. So those 1 year to 5 don't get anything, and then the others do. And what I've noticed is a big time is, I'm retired now, bonuses and longevity checks don't help a bit on your retirement at the end, what you actually get. So a lot of people can't even afford to retire because maybe they got a bonus every year, but that doesn't do a bit of good when it comes to retirement. And I think our citizens, our employees deserve it.
Doesn't include overtime or bonuses.
No, it is based on your raw, your retirement is based on your raw hourly wage that you have on your HR documents. It does not take into account overtime. It is based on that number that's on your employment agreement.
I just think it's a good thing, Krystal. Thank you.
I just think that, we have an opportunity to do this. We also have a good opportunity with the fact we have all of the ARPA dollars. Sounds like a lot, 6.8 million. It's going to go fast, but we have the ability to also use those dollars for projects where then that does free up potential budget dollars as well. For in the short term for HR related efforts that are needed for recruitment and retention, because it is very difficult to continue with the caliber of service that our residents and businesses want when we can't offer the competitive pay or at least living wage pay that we should be or could be, I guess.
Do you know how much benefits cost per employee?
I do not have that number. It's based off of a percentage of your salary, because there's FICA and there's a whole bunch of, there's various factors that factor into FICA.
Healthcare.
Yep.
Vacation, sick leave.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Disability, workers'
Those are
comp.
things that you don't get everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not opposed to a raise, but oftentimes public service work like this,
Mm-hmm.
the benefits amount to a whole lot compared to somewhere else.
I will agree with that.
What happens is we skip that point and we say, well, we need to give a raise, but those benefits make a lot of difference in what that, if they had to buy the benefits other than check, it would take probably half of what their check is to pay for their benefits.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's not a 50% more additive to cover those things.
I will agree with you, and I will say that public service does offer generous benefits, paid time off, health insurance, short-term disability if you decide you want to contribute to it, and other such things. I will say that recently we have been losing employees even after they accept an offer letter, sometimes within weeks, months, all for sometimes $2 or $3 more for jobs that have less job security, because at the end of the day, what we are seeing is they're looking at what is the bottom line in their paycheck as far as the hourly wage. And so just to be candid, that's the challenge that we're seeing. We have lost some good folks off that, and you can't fault someone for wanting to increase their earning power. I will also say I've seen some employees retire recently, and what they have retired with is their hourly wage after meeting their years of service with the city is pretty sad. So even though you have good access to health insurance and other things, if you're retiring and your highest earning wage was $12 an hour after 25 years of service, that's also, we're losing on both ends. And I think that that's just something that we as council and as city administration need to start having a frank discussion on, because the ability to recruit and retain is not getting any easier. And you can't change it for just the new ones that come in and not affect the existing employees. And again, just to reiterate, by 2025, the federal minimum wage mandate will be $15 an hour. We have a fair amount of our workforce below $15 an hour. So we will need to start incrementally addressing that, or potentially have a big pill to swallow all at once.
How quickly can we do this?
I'm
When
ready.
you talked, it seemed like there was something this year that we could do as far as?
Yes, you could go ahead, we have funds, we can within the budget at this time absorb a 4% cost of living adjustment. Then we also have the opportunity to then, as part of the budget process, start discussing our pay ranges and looking at how can we continue to close that gap, as we know that that minimum wage dollar value is going to change. You know, I mean, it used to be $7.25. So if I got, you know, hired at $7 and now I'm at 14, well, that's great. I mean, I've progressed, but when it becomes $15 an hour, well, gee golly, I didn't decide to take a job at minimum wage. I do have, you know, some skills, and, you know, we're competing, quite frankly, with, you know, McDonald's and Burger King are offering $13 an hour. No experience needed. Plus benefits.
Tommy said the benefits are a good thing, but if you're $10 short to feed your family, pay your rent, and get gas in the car to come to work,
You have to pick and
hospital
choose.
benefits, they're going to go to a job that pays that maybe $10 and covers all their bills. They're more important covering their bills than taking care of themselves in a lot of cases. A lot of people need to go to the doctor because they can't afford the medicine and stuff.
If they get a $7,000 hospital bill.
Mid-year, we can't do anything with healthcare, correct?
Or more.
BB? So that's a discussion with what you're saying we could do is a budgetary process.
That contract's done to begin.
Right, that's what I
Yeah,
thought.
we can't do anything about
But
it.
that's something we can discuss with what you're saying. February, March.
I don't have any problem with the benefits the city workers get. I don't have any problem with the 4.5% pay raise.
Mhm.
But I just want to make sure everybody understands that this is going to cost money. We just increased taxes. If we're going to increase pay, we're going to end up increasing taxes again in the near term. It takes money to pay people. We've always skimped on what we did because nobody was willing to raise taxes. And when you raise taxes, you hear a lot of fuss. But you've got to, a man is worthy of his hire.
And that's
Mr.
it.
Mayor, sorry.
But that's the thing. I mean, if people continue to want the services of the police department and the fire department, and they get their street plowed and their trash picked up, somebody's got to pay for it. And I have no problem supporting the tax increase if that's what it's going to take to make sure our employees are taken care of on that end. But I agree with what you're saying, but it's just the idea we've got to do better by our employees.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, I would like to point out two things. I think it's really important to say that this isn't intended as to be a raise for employees, it's a cost of living adjustment. Because
Won't take it away with it.
no, but it's a cost of living adjustment that will stay, but that's typically how they work is, one, we're recognizing right now that the unprecedented inflation is also unduly impacting our employees that are below what will be the new minimum wage, and two, just trying to be proactive from an HR standpoint. Secondly, I would like to point out that we have all discussed and had consensus through one-off and some direct discussions that the tax increase dollars were going to be used for improving property maintenance and code enforcement, for addressing nuisance properties, as well as using it to address our own nuisance properties. So that money has been earmarked. So this will not be coming from directly from the anticipated revenue of the tax increase that was passed in the budget. If that helps clarify or make things more confusing.
I think Jerry was supposed to.
No, that's catch-22.
What do we do? Make a motion to give a cost to?
Or do you just need a consensus?
If I can get a consensus,
Consensus or motion?
Just a formal motion.
formal
All
motion.
right, I'll make a motion that we support. the
Effective
state-
January 1st, I would say.
Effective January 1st, the 4% cost of living. I thought it was 4.
I'll
Four,
second.
4.5.
You want to do 4.5?
4.5.
He's making the motion.
No.
All right, hold on. 4.5. Let's just make sure so we understand.
I can't see.
It's roughly, okay, so 4% takes $13 to $13.52. 4.5% takes $13 to $13.59. So you're talking about 7 cents increase. Same thing for the $14, it will go from $14 to $14.56, or respectively to $14.63. So you're getting almost very close to a whole dollar increase, which is, it's good.
4.5.
Okay, I make a motion. All right, I'll make a motion that we, effective January 1st, support the 4.5% cost of living adjustment for employees.
I second it.
So, everybody seconded, so I guess it's good. Had 3 seconds in the motion.
You might want to do a roll call then.
Is there any more discussion?
Let's roll call.
Do we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mr. Hunter?
Yeah.
Mr. Tucker?
4.
Vice Mayor Crozier?
4.
Mayor Samble?
4.